Welcome to the Hindu Daily. We're starting our deep dive today with a really critical piece from the editorial section. It's called India's Court and Gender Justice, a Step Backward. This is by Tulasi K. Raj, a Supreme Court lawyer, and it looks at a recent Supreme Court ruling, Shivangi Bansal versus Saib Bansal. And, well, the core issue is its impact on Section 498A of the old Indian Penal Code.
Right, the anti-cruelty law.
Exactly. And the author feels this is a pretty big step backward for gender justice.
Yes. And it's important to remember what Section 498A was about. It came in back in 1983, a really landmark provision. It was designed to penalize cruelty against women by, her husband or his relatives. We're talking potential jail time up to 3 years and a fine.
And cruelty was defined quite broadly, wasn't it?
Very broadly and intentionally so. It covers dowry harassment, obviously, but also any act that might drive a woman to suicide or cause injury. The idea, especially given the context of dowry deaths at the time, was to really address all sorts of cruelty within marriage, not just the most extreme physical violence.
Okay, so what's changed with this new ruling? What are the specifics?
Well, this is where the shift happens. The court has directed a 2-month cool-off period.
2 months before any arrest.
Exactly, before any arrest or coercive action under 498A. And there's more cases are now supposed to be transferred to these district-level family welfare committees first.
Family welfare committee. So what's the concern there?
The author, Tulasi K. Raj, argues this basically creates a kind of temporary blanket protection for the accused. Even, and this is key, even when there seems to be overwhelming evidence of this serious crime.
Wow. So it could have a chilling effect then.
That's the worry highlighted, a potential chilling effect on complainants, making them hesitant to even come forward, and maybe more critically, it could increase the risk to their safety during this, mandatory waiting period.
This sounds linked to the whole misuse argument around 498A that we often hear.
It absolutely ties into that narrative, and it's not a new thing. The Supreme Court itself has mentioned concerns about misuse in older cases.
Like which ones?
Well, there was Preeti Gupta versus State of Jharkhand in 2010, and even back in 2005 in Sushil Kumar Sharma versus Union of India, the court used the term new legal terrorism to describe its alleged misuse. So the sentiment isn't new.
But the article challenges this.
Strongly. It argues there's actually no concrete empirical data proving widespread misuse. The low conviction rate, which was around 18% according to NCRB data for 2022, is often used as proof.
Right. People say if convictions are low, the cases must be false.
But the author flips that. First, 18% is actually higher than conviction rates for many other serious offenses. And second, low conviction can be due to so many other things.
Such as?
Systemic bias, huge social pressure on women to withdraw complaints, or just the sheer difficulty of getting evidence for violence that happens behind closed doors in intimate spaces. Plus, you have the National Family Health Survey data, NFHS 5, showing massive underreporting of violence against women.
So the problem might be the opposite. Not enough cases coming forward, rather than too many false ones.
Precisely. That's the counter-argument.
So what's the author's core argument about this specific ruling then?
The fundamental point is that, look, the potential for misuse is inherent in any law. You can't just selectively suspend this one law or put these hurdles in place based on anecdotes or perception of misuse.
Because it makes victims more vulnerable.
Yes, it makes them more vulnerable, and it also messes with the uniformity and consistency of criminal law application. It goes against a well-settled legal principle, one the court itself acknowledged in that Sushil Kumar Sharma case. Misuse of a law isn't grounds to strike it down or, stop it from working as intended.
It's a really complex balance, isn't it? Addressing potential misuse without undermining the law's protection.
It absolutely is.
Okay, let's shift from the courtroom to another vital area.
Yeah.
Healthcare governance. Our next editorial is Community Engagement in Health Governance. This one explores similar power dynamics, asking how much real say citizens have in shaping their own health. It mentions recent state initiatives, like Tamil Nadu's Makkalai Thedi Maruthuvam or Karnataka's Gruha Aroja schemes, bringing health care to people's doorsteps, which sound great.
They do represent a positive direction.
But the article asks the deeper question. Are citizens truly able to engage with and influence health governance effectively?
And it argues why this engagement is absolutely essential. It's not just a nice extra. It affirms self-respect. It combats what's called epistemic injustice.
Epistemic injustice. Can you unpack that?
Sure. It basically means the harm done when someone's knowledge or lived experience is unfairly dismissed or not taken seriously, especially by systems that are supposed to serve them. In health, it means valuing patients' and communities' insights into their own health needs and barriers.
Got it. So, valuing their experience, what else?
Well, engagement upholds democratic values, obviously. It strengthens accountability, pushes back against elite dominance in decision-making, can reduce corruption, and actually improve service uptake because the services are better tailored.
And we've tried this before, right, with NRHM.
Yes, there were historical efforts. The National Rural Health Mission back in 2005 tried to institutionalize this with things like the Village Health Sanitation and Nutrition Committees, the VHSNCs, and similar platforms in urban areas too, though their actual effectiveness has often been, well, inconsistent.
So where does the article say the problem lies now? Why isn't engagement always effective?
It points squarely at a prevailing mindset among many policymakers and administrators. They tend to see communities not as active partners or rights holders, but more as passive recipients or just beneficiaries.
Give people things are done to, rather than with.
Exactly, and this influences how success is measured. Often it's about hitting target-based metrics, how many people were covered by a program.
Rather than asking if the program actually met their needs or improved their experience.
Precisely. It focuses on the numbers, sometimes losing sight of the actual ground-level experience and quality of care.
The article also mentions the role of medical professionals in leadership.
Yes, it notes that health administration leadership often comes from medical professionals rising through seniority, who may lack formal public health training focused on community systems. This can reinforce a very medicalized and hierarchical system that feels disconnected from community realities.
And there's resistance sometimes.
Scholarly work suggests resistance can stem from concerns about increased workload, or maybe fears of accountability, or even regulatory capture. When these formal engagement platforms don't function well, what happens?
These will find other ways.
Right. Citizens resort to protests, media campaigns, sometimes legal action. It shows a deep need for proper channels that isn't being met.
So the article calls for a fundamental mindset shift, more than just tweaking programs.
Absolutely. It's about moving past seeing community engagement as just a tool to achieve program targets. Treating people instrumentally like that is seen as reductive, disrespectful even.
So what's the proposed approach?
It's two-pronged. First, actively empower communities. Give them information about their health rights, about governance platforms. Foster civic awareness, especially reaching marginalized groups. Equip them with the tools to participate meaningfully.
Okay, empower the community. What's the second part?
Sensitize the health system actors themselves. Get them to move beyond blaming individuals, like saying, oh, it's just poor awareness when people don't seek care.
Instead, look at the bigger picture.
Yes, recognize the structural determinants of health inequities. Poverty, access, discrimination, etc. Health professionals need to genuinely see communities as partners, not just passive recipients. Building platforms is one thing, but making them truly functional and responsive is the real challenge.
Let's move to the opinion section now. An article by Vasudevan Mukunth called Nationalism as Spectacle. This one looks at what it calls India's new politics of imagery.
A fascinating concept.
It uses the recent inauguration of the Chenab Railway Bridge as a prime example. It's the world's highest rail arch bridge, an incredible feat.
Undoubtedly an engineering marvel.
But the article argues it's being turned into more than that, a nationalist spectacle. It's even going to be on the Independence Day invitation card.
And the core argument here is that grandeur, rather than inclusion, seems to have become the main language of national pride today. It's not just about celebrating achievement, but about the kind of achievement being celebrated and the narrative it pushes.
The article mentions other examples, like the Statue of Unity.
Yes, examples of what it calls gigantism. The author's point is that while these projects are visually impressive, they tend to smother questions of distributive justice. Do they benefit everyone? And the perspective offered is that they often serve a specific Hindu-first narrative rather than truly universal aspirations. It raises questions about who belongs to this spectacle.
And it connects this to rewriting history.
Exactly. The argument is that these big building projects aren't just about the future. They're part of a project to rewrite history, to, quote, repopulate the national imagination with icons drawn solely from a few mythologies.
The Kashi Vishwanath corridor is mentioned.
as an example where engineering skill is used, in the author's view, to announce who belongs and who doesn't. It suggests a deliberate reshaping of public memory in space through these grand structures.
How does this compare to, say, older national spectacles, like the Eiffel Tower?
The article draws a contrast. Traditional nation-building spectacles often aim to symbolize shared progress, unity. But the argument here is that in contemporary India, the spectacle often asserts dominance alongside progress.
Can you give an example of that tension?
Well, the article points to the Statue of Unity, again, a gleaming monument, while nearby Adivasi communities, displaced for its construction, watch on with little say, or massive expressways built while villages right next to them lack basic sanitation or clean water.
Or the Himalayan tunnel projects?
Right. Presented as engineering triumphs, but they can hide ecological damage and the displacement of indigenous communities, often with limited democratic consultation. It's a picture of a singular top-down vision.
And engineering projects lend themselves well to this kind of politics.
They do, because they are so tangible, big, measurable, concrete things. They can be easily presented as proof of political will, of competence. It shifts the focus to optics rather than outcomes.
Looks impressive, regardless of the deeper impact.
Precisely. It's easy to showcase a giant bridge or statue as evidence of action.
How does the article conclude this thought?
It ends with a really powerful historical contrast. It reminds us of older Indian engineering marvels, stepwells, ancient irrigation, Mughal gardens, things that primarily served communities, not just sovereigns.
And the final line.
It's provocative. No monument can command loyalty in perpetuity if those on whom it is built remain strangers to its promise. A strong call to think about what constitutes real national progress.
Very thought-provoking. Okay, let's look at our next opinion piece. This one tackles international relations. U.S. criticism of India's Russia trade, illogical double standards.
Right, this gets into some tricky geopolitical territory.
It starts with U.S. President Donald Trump imposing a 25% tariff on Indian goods recently. And the stated reason: India's reliance on Russia for cheap crude oil and military gear.
The quote is quite direct.
Yes, Trump saying India buys the vast majority of their military equipment from Russia and is Russia's largest buyer of energy, along with China, when everyone wants Russia to stop the killing in Ukraine, all things not good.
Strong words. But the article argues that while the facts about the trade might be correct, the criticism itself is, well, illogical and shows double standards.
How so? What's the evidence presented?
It uses data on fossil fuel exports. Between Feb 2022 and Aug 2025, Russia earned a huge amount, about $922 million. The EU share of that was around 22%, or $212 billion.
So the EU bought more than India.
Significantly more, according to this data. And it also points out that some EU countries, like the Netherlands, have imported large amounts of oil products from India that were actually derived from Russian crude. So an indirect benefit there, too.
Interesting. What about the U.S. itself? Is it still importing from Russia?
That's another key point. Despite sanctions, the U.S. continued importing Russian goods, especially fertilizers. In 2025, as of February, those imports exceeded $800 million.
And Trump's reaction to that?
Reportedly, he said he doesn't know anything about those specific imports, which, the article suggests, highlights a selective focus.
Okay, what about the arms trade? India buying over 50% from Russia since 2022.
The article acknowledges that figure but adds important context. India's arms purchases from Russia have actually been declining steadily since the 1990s.
So diversification.
Yes, with more imports coming from France, the UK, and even the US itself, though maybe a smaller share overall. But then comes the really sharp counterpoint.
Which is?
It links the criticism about enabling the killing in Ukraine to U.S. actions elsewhere. It highlights that the U.S. is by far the largest weapons supplier to Israel, 80% of its defense imports since 1949, and 100% since 2022.
And connects this to the situation in Gaza.
Yes, noting that Israel's actions there have led to, at the time of writing, at least 60,933 deaths, and have been described by some institutions as genocidal. The implied question is about consistency in applying principles regarding arms sales and conflict.
Did India's government respond to this tariff and criticism?
Yes, India's Ministry of External Affairs issued a statement around August 4th, 2025, explicitly calling out these double standards. They mentioned the continued purchases of energy, minerals, fertilizers, iron, and steel from Russia by the U.S. and EU themselves.
So it's a complex web of trade and politics.
Absolutely. The article essentially leaves you, the listener, to think about these complexities. When are geopolitical concerns applied universally, and when are they perhaps selective? It shows how national interest often drives these decisions, creating situations that look illogical or hypocritical from the outside.
A reminder that global affairs are rarely simple. Okay, let's completely change pace and head to the sports section for an uplifting story.
Sounds good.
Ramesh Budihal, India's surfing pioneer, breaks continental barriers. This celebrates Ramesh Budihal, who just won a bronze medal at the Asian Surfing Championships in Mamallapuram.
And this is huge because it's India's first ever individual medal at the continental level in surfing. Truly historic.
His backstory is quite something, isn't it?
Yeah.
Started surfing through a local club in Kerala.
That's right, the Kovalam Surf Club and the Sebastian Indian Social Project. He talks about the ocean feeling like home. But his family wasn't keen initially.
Why not?
They thought it was dangerous, uncertain about the future in a sport like surfing. He actually had to sneak out to surf in the early days. It really highlights the grassroots beginnings and challenges many athletes face in less mainstream sports here.
And the financial side was tough, too.
Very tough. The article states clearly there's no steady income from surfing here. He often had to give lessons himself just to fund his own training, relying on occasional sponsorships.
Like the Coca-Cola one.
Yes, that Olympic promotion in 2024 was a boost. Small bits of support like that were absolutely vital for him to keep competing and improving. It's a struggle many Indian athletes outside cricket or established sports know well.
But he persevered and climbed the ranks.
Incredibly consistently. He's been in the top 3 nationally for the last 4 years. And in 2024, he became India's #1 male surfer, winning key events like the Indian Open of Surfing.
He also faced a setback last year.
Yes, he didn't make the team for the Asian Championships in the Maldives. He admitted hurt, but also motivated him, shows real resilience, turning disappointment into fuel.
His mindset seems key. The quote about training, even when there are no waves.
No matter what, you have to prepare mentally and physically. That dedication, that mental fortitude is probably why he kept his composure in the final this time. His coach just told him to show your surfing.
And the team did well overall, too, helping secure more spots for the Asian Games.
Yes, the team performance was strong, getting those extra quotas for the 2026 Asian Games, where surfing will make its debut.
So what's the broader significance of this bronze medal?
The article calls it a major turnaround in the sport's trajectory and the country's stance as a surfing nation. The Surfing Federation president, Arun Vasu, is now hopeful for an Asian Games medal. It's a groundbreaking milestone, really, built on Budihal's sheer persistence. It redefines what's possible for Indian surfing.
A fantastic achievement. Now let's move to the science section for something quite different. Dengue immunity, the EDE-like antibody breakthrough.
Right. This tackles a really tricky problem with dengue.
Which is?
Well, there are 4 different types or serotypes of the dengue virus, and weirdly, if you get infected with one type, the immunity you develop can actually make you more likely to get severe disease if you later get infected with a different type.
That sounds completely counterintuitive. Immunity making things worse.
It is. It's called antibody-dependent enhancement, or ADE, and it's been a massive headache for developing a universal dengue vaccine that works safely against all 4 types.
So what's the breakthrough mentioned in the article?
A major new study, published in Science Translational Medicine, involving researchers from the U.S. and the Philippines. They've identified a specific type of antibody called envelope dimer epitope, EDE-like antibodies, that seems key to building broad immunity across different serotypes.
EDE-like antibodies. What do they target on the virus?
They target the envelope protein, which is on the virus's surface. Specifically, they bind to complex 3D shapes called quaternary epitopes formed when these proteins link up. Think of it as recognizing a very specific structural feature.
And how do they study this?
They followed a large group, nearly 3,000 children in Cebu, in the Philippines, during a big dengue outbreak. Some kids had been vaccinated, others hadn't. They tracked their infections and immune responses over time.
What were the key findings about these EDE-like antibodies?
Okay, this is crucial. These antibodies were found much more often in 80 to 90% of kids who had secondary immunity. That means kids who'd already been exposed to at least 2 different dengue types before.
So they're linked to having broader immunity already.
Exactly. But they were mostly absent in kids with only primary immunity, exposure to just one type. And here's the most important part. Higher levels of these EDE-like antibodies were consistently linked to lower chances of getting symptomatic dengue or dengue with warning signs or dengue bad enough to need hospitalization.
And this protection worked against multiple types of dengue.
Yes, it showed broad cross-serotype protection.
But there was a nuance, right? about preventing infection versus preventing severe disease.
A very interesting nuance. These EDE-like antibodies seem to offer only limited protective effects against viral replication, meaning they weren't great at stopping someone from getting infected again. However, they were much better at protecting against developing severe disease once infected.
So they don't necessarily stop you catching it, but they stop it getting really bad.
That seems to be the key takeaway. And the implication is huge. When the researchers analyzed the data, these EDE-like antibodies explained a large part of the protection that was previously just attributed to general antibody levels. They seem to be a primary underlying determinant of that broad protective immunity.
So this could change how we design vaccines.
Potentially, yes. Instead of just aiming for antibodies that block infection, which might risk ADE with the wrong kind of antibody response, we could design vaccines specifically to generate high levels of these protective EDE-like antibodies.
The aha moment being, maybe the goal isn't stopping infection entirely, but stopping severe illness using these specific antibodies.
Precisely. It's a potential paradigm shift for dengue vaccine development.
Fascinating stuff. Okay, let's move to our text section analysis. First up, Google's antitrust battle in India's Supreme Court. This is a big legal fight.
A very significant one, yes.
Google is appealing to the Supreme Court against the NCLA judgment. NCLA is the National Company Law Appellate Tribunal, and that tribunal had mostly agreed with the Competition Commission of India, the CCI.
Right. The CCI found that Google had abused its dominant position in the Android market.
And the core issues are Google's mandatory play billing system, GPBS, and how it bundles its apps.
Those are the main points. The CCI accused Google of several things. One, forcing app developers to use GPBS for any in-app purchases and taking a commission, usually 15 to 30%.
Okay, mandatory billing. What else?
Two, exempting its own big app, YouTube, from those same rules, giving it an advantage. And three, requiring smartphone makers to pre-install a whole suite of Google apps, Search, Chrome, YouTube, etc., if they wanted access to the essential Google Play Store.
And the CCI argued this hurt competition.
Yes, they said it distorted competition, limited choice for developers and consumers, and stifled innovation.
How did Google push back on this? What was their defense?
Google rejected these conclusions. They argued Android is open source, device makers can use it without the Play Store and Google's apps if they want. They claimed pre-installation is just for user convenience, users can still download other apps.
And the billing system.
They argued GPIS ensures security and trust, and the commission fees are standard for the global platform they provide. They also defended exempting YouTube based on different business models and pointed to the success of Indian apps like PhonePe on Android as proof the market is competitive.
So what did the NCLAT decide in the end? It wasn't a clear win for either side.
No, it was definitely a mixed judgment. The NCLAT agreed with the CCI on several key points that mandatory billing and the app bundling did amount to abuse of dominance.
But they reduced the fine.
Yes, quite significantly. From over 936 crore down to about 216 crore, calling the original penalty disproportionate. Interestingly, they initially struck down some behavioral changes the CCI ordered, but later reinstated two important ones about transparency and data use.
So a partial victory, which means everyone appealed.
Exactly. Google wasn't happy, the CCI wasn't fully satisfied, and even a developer group, the Alliance Digital India Foundation, appealed. It all ended up at the Supreme Court.
The stakes feel really high here. For consumers, developers, phone makers.
Absolutely. For consumers, it could mean more app choice, maybe lower prices if developers have billing options. For phone makers, more flexibility in what they pre-install. For Indian startups, a potentially more level playing field against a tech giant. It affects millions.
And the impact beyond India.
Huge. India is one of Google's biggest markets. A negative ruling here could set a precedent, potentially triggering similar regulatory actions elsewhere. It could force Google to rethink its whole Android business model globally.
So the Supreme Court's decision is really about?
It's about how India balances innovation, consumer protection, and fair market competition in the digital age. The outcome will ripple through the mobile ecosystem for hundreds of millions of users here, and likely influence global digital regulation too.
A landmark case to watch. Finally, our last piece from the text section. Trump's Flux Americana. Reshaping the global order.
This one takes a broad look at the international system.
It suggests the rules-based international order, sometimes called Pax Americana, set up post-WWII, largely by the U.S., is kind of unraveling now, mainly due to President Trump's policies.
Right. It defines that order as the whole system of norms, institutions like the WTO, IMF, World Bank, designed to manage international relations, historically underpinned by American power. The goal was to put guardrails on global politics, limit rivals.
But the article acknowledges some argue the order is resilient.
Yes, it mentions the view that the U.S. has allowed openness, like China joining the WTO, Japan joining the G7, suggesting the system could adapt.
But the article disputes that view, saying the openness wasn't just generosity.
Exactly. It argues that this flexibility wasn't just U.S. munificence, but more a necessity. Asian nations were growing rapidly, developing their own sense of agency and autonomous power in a complex multi-alliance world. The U.S. had to adapt to this changing reality. It wasn't simply dictating terms anymore.
So what's the article's main prediction about the current situation? It uses the term Flux Americana.
Yes, Flux Americana. The core prediction is that the actions of a second Trump administration will fundamentally transform the order to the point of it resembling a new order entirely.
How? What specific transformations does it highlight?
It points to the undermining of NATO, leaving Europe potentially more vulnerable, and significantly, the administration's strong alignment with what the article terms the genocidal and warmongering causes of Israel's Benjamin Netanyahu.
And the impact of that alignment.
The prediction is that this will rewrite the playbook for other regional powers from Saudi Arabia to Turkey, potentially setting dangerous new precedents for international behavior and intervention.
It also mentions smaller impacts, like on students applying for U.S. visas.
Right. Things like potentially requiring compulsory social media checks for visas. It shows how these high-level geopolitical shifts can filter down and affect individuals.
Now, what does this Flux Americana look like in practice, according to the article?
It paints a picture of a more fragmented world. More bilateral deals instead of big regional ones, more use of economic sanctions outside WTO rules, more skirmishes and limited wars, a greater reliance on drones and AI in conflicts, and overall, a steady, catastrophic dismembering of global institutions that were meant to foster cooperation.
It leaves you wondering what this means for global stability.
Absolutely. The provocative question is, if these foundations are shifting so dramatically, how do nations navigate this? Is it a temporary disruption or a fundamental long-term change in how the world operates?
Okay, let's just take a moment to reflect. We've covered a lot: legal changes, health governance, nationalism, trade disputes, sports, science, antitrust, global order shifts. Is there a common thread weaving through all these diverse topics?
It's fascinating, isn't it? What strikes me is how each piece, in its own context, really explores the tension between established systems, whether it's law, healthcare, national narratives, or global alliances, and the intense pressures for change.
Change from within, like citizens demanding a voice, or from outside forces challenging norms.
Exactly. Both internal and external pressures are reshaping these systems. And it brings up a really critical question for all of us, for you listening. We live in an age overflowing with information, right? But how often do we have truly meaningful engagement? How do we ensure that the decisions being made, the systems being built or reformed, actually reflect the needs and hopes of the many, not just the interests of a powerful few? That seems to be a question echoing through many of these articles today.
Thank you for listening. If today's episode gave you something useful, consider following us on Spotify so you're the first to hear the next one. You can give suggestions by contacting on Twitter handle given the episode description. Apologies if you couldn't reach out earlier. The message inbox was restricted. You should be able to now. As always, we are eager to hear what our listeners want to be informed about. We wish you a great day.